component, and we are having a parent component. In app module, I will keep that parent component in the startup. So parent component is in the startup. So let's go to index and set this app parent. So the parent component is in the startup. Parent component is in the startup. So you can see the parent component is in the startup. So it is not started. So the parent component is in the startup. Okay. In the parent component, we want to access one child component. Let's see the child component. Yeah. So this is the parent and child component we designed. Now, in the parent component, we want to use child component. So let's see how we can design the child component. First, in the parent component, let's go to the parent component. Yeah, in the parent component, we are designing here. Yeah. In the parent component, we are designing a simple text box. So input type is equal to text. And here we are defining a text box. So that is the parent component. Parent component is having a text box. So class as form control. Okay. Now I have a property in the parent component. In the parent component, we have a property. So public username. So that is the property. This username property, I want to bind with this text box. Then we are binding by using two-way binding technique. ngmodel is equal to username. That's how we are binding. Now, important, we can have some default value into it. In this text box, we can have some default value into it. Here I will just keep here style margin top, margin bottom is 20 pixel. Okay. So that it will keep little bit down. Fine. This is the parent component. Now in this parent component text box, we are using two-way binding. That means we are using ngmodel. Our intention is to understand how this ngmodel is working. So our intention is to understand how this ngmodel is working. Then what we will do is, we will collect the changes happening. We will identify the changes happening in the model. And the model related data we will collect and show inside this child component. In the child component, we will try to display the model related data. So model related data, what is present in model and how it is updating it. In that case, what we will do is, we will pass that username. We will pass that username into child component. We will pass the username into the child component. So then we have to collect that. In order to pass the username in child component, there must be some property. Let's go to property here. In the property of a child component, in the child components, in the child component, I will create a property which you can access inside the parent component. That means not MSG. I'm just using. So here, a simple property as username. There can be another property also into it. So here I am defining simply username. Username is property. Okay. This username property should collect the value and display in child. In child HTML, we want to display that username. So that username we want to display here. So hello and that username we want to display. Parent component should send that to the username. So username, it should send this username property there. That means that username is sent to the child component. So child component can display that username here. So I am typing here and you can see that is working in the child component. From parent component, we are sending data to child component. Child component is showing that data. This process already we know. Already we have learned how to send the data from parent to child and show in the child. For that, in the child, there must be a property which can accept your value and collect the value from the parent. From parent, we are collecting the value from text box and we are updating here. Now we need to understand in the background, how this is updating the changes, how it is sending the changes, how model notifies those changes. That means how the parent component notifies the changes to the child component so that child component can update that value. So how this is actually working, how it is working. Because we are not using any event. So we are not using any event here like on change. So if we are not using event, after we finished typing, how it is identifying that change. That means how child component is updating that information coming from the parent. So that is actually controlled by using the lifecycle event on changes. So child component is using on changes to identify the changes. It can get the previous value and the current value from previous value is with child component. Current value is coming from the parent component. It will identify the previous value and current value by using an object of simple changes. Based on that, it can get the value and update the value. So let's see how it is doing actually. So for understanding that, temporarily what we are doing is, now go to child component. I want this child component to identify those changes happening. Then we will import here on changes and simple changes, on changes and simple changes. We need to implement on changes.